Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. What's crack like on everyone's Saturday? I was work, I was coming home, that's what you did. Welcome into another 5M stream tonight. How you doing, Gunny? What's crack lacking? I see you just won 200k chips. I was trying to get the multi going, but it wasn't liking me. But there is a multiplier on of 2 times. There always is on the weekends, so you guys can enjoy that with all the gambling chip games in chat. But tonight we are going to be making Bernard. We're going to be creating old man Bernard. I'm going to change his voice slightly, but not too much, and then we're just going to bring Bernard back essentially as a cop induction in 25 minutes. So I'm going to get my character ready, and then we're going to get over to the induction. I think it's an MRPD, so we're going to be kind of quick about this. I might have timed this poorly, but we'll have to wait and see. So let's go to the game screen and we'll get on into it. But hey, how's everyone else in chat as well? You guys are all doing well? And I'll run a cheeky raffle. Yeah, Bernard. Bernard's coming back. And for a change, just so everyone's aware as well, I'm getting rid of my cam until I get a new net, like next week or the week after. Because net is poo, and I can stream a better quality of better net. And that's essentially the problem I'm having at the moment. But, you know, the mindset I'm taking is that Nico. Go Nico as a dad. I want to have Bernard have jowls and be like old man. So we're going to make Bernard look old, but try and keep somewhat of the same vibe. Oh yeah, that's I'm looking that already. I don't want his mouth being that big. We'll go to here. And Bernard was white, so we'll just leave him as this. Is that a bit much, maybe? I don't think Bernard was that fat, was he? He looked alright. He didn't look that terrible. But how you doing? Someone's a gamer as well. What's crack like with you Saturday? Yeah, something like that might be a bit better. Yeah. I reckon that's on. Alright. Now let's actually do the features. Get the droopy nose. Raise that brow. We want that side profile. Yeah, give him that nice bump. Perfect. You're just sitting lurking on my Twitch, giving me those views, bro. That's alright. Make sure it's nice and droopy. And that has Bernard a broken nose? I guess we're just going to say he has. We're going to go with that for now. Want a big forehead? Yeah, droopy eyebrows. Make him look grumpy. Is that this? Oh, how high that is. Give him a big old brow. Oh, fuck. He's not going to fit in a mask. I shouldn't do this. It looks like he fell. Oh, no, but this character's not running. I've already thought about this. I'm going to try and get him a cane, and he's not running. Oh, we're going to do Bernard like he's 80 or something. I don't know if they're even going to let me in. Jawbone width. We'll probably lower the width a little bit. Make it so we'll actually fit in a mask. To be honest, I think that's actually almost alright. Just give him the hair. He had a bum chin though, so we want to make sure he has that bum chin still. Oh my god, that's despicable. I'm doing that. For sure. We make him closed as, because he's old too, yeah. And let's just like make this neck a little thinner. Or thicker, sorry. Yeah, look, that's good. That's good. Peter looking ass. Right. Hair. Now, Bernard had black hair. But we have to go for the grey highlights, but we get better highlights in there. Bit of a make. I don't. He wasn't balding though. He was only in his like 40s or 50s though, I think, in fucking New Spark. So the Jimmy haircut. Do the full Jimmy. Won't even let me do it. Well, it's because it's downloading assets. Well, I feel like the hair's cooked. Call it bone smashing. Elise Stever, welcome to the chat. What's crack-a-lackin' with your Saturday? How was work? Us we got home. That's what you did. Just making a cop character. Bone smashing. Bone needs to jump on it. You take one of those turkey trips, you reckon? And we need to find a hairline that's receding the perfect amount. Fuck, Bernard's gonna look horrible if we do this. Do we go grey with black highlight? Well, I've gone too hard. Well, we're still sending it further. Make this guy look horrible. Luckily, we're on another raffle. If you guys in chat, and there's also a 2x multiplier on all the chip games over the weekend. So, over 25k raffle, you get 50k. He was so handsome in New Spark. We full make him washed up. Oh, nice, nice. Well, you can always add on Discord or show me where your art is, but look, I don't really like the promotion of the random art stuff all the time. Not that it's against anything against your art, it's perfectly fine, but I have like an artist I use for emotes and stuff. Saved you many times. I'm trying to figure out which beard. On cop, I suppose so. I think this is the one we want. Fuck, Bernard's... This doesn't look anything like Bernard. Is it... You could drop your Discord. If you use !@ Discord in chat, it brings it up. It brings up my main Discord and you can always add us from there. Thank you. There you go. That's some nice eyebrows. We keep them black. Now with the aging, we want to make sure we get the right aging in here. To be honest, that's probably the best one there. We'll go through it though quickly. Make sure you guys use !@ join to get into that raffle there, which ends in a minute. I think we're going with 14. Sun damage. Yeah, look, this is as old as we can fucking make him. Hello, Raven. What's crack-a-lackin' with you Saturday? I was work asking back home. That's what you did, G-Star. Hopefully you did kick back at home and had Saturday off. Yeah. Perfect chest hair. Thank you. All these body blemishes. Oh, there we go. And eye colour. Brown, wasn't it? Alright, sweet. We gotta get some clothes quickly. We've got 15 minutes to get to this thing, so I'm gonna be quick. Lower body, pants. Yeah, day off, nice. Classic denim, that's good enough. And we just keep the loafs on. Some old canvases. Oh, boat shoes, brown. Blue, perfect. Eyeglasses, sunglasses. And he always wore like speed dealers, didn't he? Yeah, perfect. Alright. That's good enough. Boom. I just escaped retirement for induction. The thing is, I want to be quick. I want to make sure I get there in time. That's the only thing I'm worried about, Mr. Jeremy. Otherwise, we'd go harder. I would have maybe flew in a bit earlier, but Jasmine goes away tomorrow, so we're like trying to help her get ready for stuff. Whittaker spelled correctly, Bernard spelled correctly. Age. So should we actually make him up around like 80? Will they even let me on the force at 80? Oh, I don't know. We'll do 76. Got it. Background, I'm ready. View backgrounds. Gotta go to veteran. Oh, I'm viewing backgrounds. I'm at the set. Veteran. Oh, should I actually have something written up for Bernard somewhere? If I had tried hard enough, I could probably find it. Do we try though? Or just write something new up? Forced retirement. Some years ago. I've been forced against my will by relatives and recent tax changes to return back to Victoria Police. Victoria Police. Thank you. I'll check in it'd be my friend request that I assume. Oh, true. You can just send message requests if you join my Discord. I allow message requests for members of my Discord. Fairly sure. My Discord's just DonHulieo. It's the same as my stream name. I could have just said that too, I suppose. That's my bad. The thing is, I really should have prepared something for this. I have it in my head. I wrote something for Julio. Oh, for Marcus, sorry. I'm just gonna hit it with that. It's such a fucking basic one. Terrible roleplay. Done. I'm ready. Final step. Let's go. What do you do? Yeah, in this situation. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but maybe it is. I don't play enough. I'm trying to do this as quick as I can. I really timed this poorly. Trying to do this quickly. Was proper in a few months ago was Depcom for an SFL server. It's sadly nothing like it was only a few years ago. Yeah, well, there's higher pop servers, so I'm not necessarily chasing the pop. Server rules. I use choose to report function to flag a player who has broken the rules. I will. That one. Trying to make sure there's not a better answer there. Baiting. Oh, whoops, that's the wrong answer. Whoops. Let's let me back in still. Lol. I should probably get into the Discord and say Bernard is coming. He's just taking a while. Let's get started. Right, now we gotta walk. Walking styles do this while we're walking. Surely is it? Leicester's probably the best thing we got here. Yeah. Background start. Driver's license, government payments, ID card, phone. I just ran. Spoon. So, autopilot. I'm hoping I have a garage. No cars. You know, we're gonna have to like call up a lift from someone. Can always do the cheeky fly in and out. Put it on light mode, even though I don't like light mode. I'm gonna go to Birdie. That's my first port of call. Because I think I'm gonna struggle getting a lift down to the city. This is taxis. I have to steal the car. Oh no, chat. This is not going to go well. I'm going to quick sip of my tea. I think I have a plan of attack here. Oh, Bernard looks terrible. We check services. You try calling the police. That'd be funny. Let's call the cops, be like, boys, I'm picking old man up, I'm stuck up in Wittaker. Ask for a pole air pickup. I could probably even get one. I'm lost in Bendigo and due for induction tonight. We'll start just walking around aimlessly. I'm gonna start walking around the roads. Where am I going? Oh, Jesus. I think I'm gonna try and just talk through my lips. That's the idea for making Bernard sound older. But it definitely doesn't look like Bernard. That's my plan though. Birdie and then the police app. Hope for the best. Or steal a car. No, he didn't. He went pretty rough. The retirement home didn't treat him well. We'll have to come up with an actual good backstory for him. Check Birdie. Just keep looking at Birdie, hoping for the best. Reply to it crying. Keep walking up and down the same street would be a little bit boring. We'd keep just doing laps around here though. But yeah, so what? Bernard went to the retirement village. After 5 years of doing his hobbies, sailboating around. Sailboating and fishing, right? And then... Oh, actually no, you don't want to have any indents, right? During the time at the retirement village, he started to run out of money after thinking he had made frugal investments, which he had not. Lost all his money at the pokies, so that's to do the only thing he knows. I think, yeah, pokies, and thinking he could live off the investment money, and he could not. Yeah, and then was forced by the not being able to make any money off the pokies and family to go back to work. And now he's got dementias. Yeah, exactly right. That's kind of been that's the idea behind it. At least I hope. Well, you guys can see how much I'm cooking on my PC. Live on the top left. Nice. Actually not too bad. I was trying to change, like, bug around with some settings to try and improve my computer. We're back to the same spot. Oh, this place looks familiar. Where am I? Well, we're not making it to the induction tonight without stealing the car, I don't think. Yeah, I think so. There's a bus. Do we just catch the bus? Let me get a ride down to the city, mate. Come on now. Come on. Hey, let me get a lift. Oh. Fuck. I hope so. Well, I hope not, sorry. Well, you know what I've forgotten to do though? Give me 1 second, chat. I've forgotten to start bloody Pokemon. That's what I get for doing the 5-minute timer. Probably should just do the refly technique and go into the MRPD, to be completely honest with you. I'm going to relog though. Yeah. The thing is though, I put the call in and I don't want to like leave and then the call actually get responded to. I would have been walking the entire way though if I had done this earlier today. On that note, so. I just walked in the rain for ages. I might actually just relog. I'll check Birdie first, though. I'll walk up to the garage. Well, in the very end, you actually came with a car, but there's no car. I'm sure I chose a different backstory. Evening, Lego. What's crack-a-lackin' with you Saturday? How's your morning going? Oh yeah, look at that. Old man came. Old man jumping.
Hello there, mate.
Hi, mate.
My name's Wittaker. I'm meant to be having a bloody induction tonight.
Oh, copy. Yeah, mate. You're the man I'm here for. Hop in.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you.
What's your name again, mate?
Oh, it's Bernard. Yeah.
Locate him.
Thank you, mate. What was your name, sir?
Oh, my name's Senior Constable Bravo.
Righto, lovely to meet you, mate.
I think that's where your voice rumbles.
Oh. My ears are hurting me. I'm a bit old, mate.
Oh, that's all good, mate. No, you're fine. I'm just not much of a talker when I'm driving.
That's right, sir.
This car does fly. How you doing? Why not? Hazard was crack-lackin' with you Saturday. But no, it did not reset. Well, I guess it's 2.0.
You been, mate? You been busy today?
Yeah, mate, it was a bloody cold flight over here in the rain, and then I was getting my clothes, and then I don't know, I kind of forgot where I was, and then the induction came up on me, you know.
Oh, it sneaks up on you. Yeah, yeah.
I've been walking in the rain for like 10 minutes now. Wherever was I? Was that Bendigo?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. That would be. I think a fair few people have apartments up that side of town. So.
Oh, yeah, something about a view of dreams I was saying. I wasn't too sure.
Nah, that's all good. Mate. That's all good.
That was always perfect, getting something in my throat there.
The right side of town, and we'll get you in a uniform, mate.
Thank you, mate. I'll be the oldest rookie on the force, I think.
You know, that's a good show as well, mate. So it's all good.
Bring back the King's speech.
Yeah, Thomas, I think I got someone else here, eh? But yeah. I'll do a quick wrap up for you guys in chat too, eh? Make sure you guys' next question might join.
Have to get fuel back at the station.
Which was a cinematic cam again? Is it on? I'm trying to remember which one it is. I'm actually surprised someone came to give me. It was like I didn't read. Like, see.
I'll let you come in with me. I'll walk you up to where the induction is.
Oh, thank you, mate. Getting a PIV treatment.
That's it.
Just start saying shit the wrong way and see if everyone notices. Oh fuck.
Right, is it this way? Oh, that way. Alright.
This way, mate. Yeah,
If I'm
up here.
reading out fucking fake cops, they call me first Connie. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know who the fuck I am.
Yeah, you smart, man.
It's, you know.
Through here, mate.
Thank you, sir.
Plus, if I go get the fucking specials vest, then people are gonna know that I'm special, and at least this way they don't
You don't need a special vest.
Actually, we'll take the elevator, mate. You,
Oh, thank you, mate.
yeah, just be safe. Come on. Once you go to floor 2, okay.
Alright, will do.
That was crazy, holy fuck.
Here we go.
Oh, hoovered.
Afternoon, everyone.
Bud.
Meet,
How's me, bud? Okay.
This is one of our newest recruits.
Oh, I hope he doesn't have a pacemaker.
Hey, I want to be an interceptor.
Sorry?
I want to be an
No,
interceptor.
no. When you inducted me like a couple
No,
weeks ago, though.
I'm the only interceptor because they have to give me something, otherwise I complain. So,
Ah, okay.
That is
I was
also
going to go
true.
with you need the crutch because you can't drive normally, so you need the fastest car we got.
that
copy.
too. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that too. I did
The
petition
moral,
the
moral of
government
the
for like
story
a
is if you bitch and moan,
hovercar,
you get
but-
everything.
Correct.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that means I should get
Special
everything.
favors
lost
to the
bud?
commander, like
No, this is
Gobby's in the
our
cupboard.
this
Huh?
is our oldest rookie. Everyone, meet Maynard.
Jesus fucking Christ, bud.
Hello,
Didn't they make a show about that guy?
name's Nerd.
Wasn't he like corrupt as well, eh?
Oh, probably.
What's your name, Sue?
It's, where's my license actually?
Fuck.
With Wittaker.
Fucking geriatric.
No, mate, I'm actually, what is it, diabetic.
Who's diabetic?
Jesus fucking
Okay.
Christ, bud.
How the donuts? Right. Let me grab my tablet here.
Is it donuts? Where are the donuts?
Did you say Bernard Whittaker?
Yeah.
I remember you.
Who are you?
Is he even Warren or something, bud?
No, he used to be a cop back in the old days.
Oh, I remember you if we were officers together, mate. We would have served for a long time.
Fuck, that would have
I
served
like
him
that he's got an
together, eh?
actual license though. That's good.
Mr. Whittaker, do you have a cellular device?
Um,
What is it?
Yes, actually, this thing. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You wanna go find sorry guys, because I just direct to put you. You wanna find an app on your phone called Jobs and make sure you got the police job on you.
Hobbs.
Jobs.
Jumps. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you got that?
Oh, yes. Gross. Oh,
Oh, perfect. We'll get you some clothing. If you just wanna.
I'm not giving you my clothes.
No.
No, he's
We'll
gonna
give
give
you
you
some
some
on.
clothes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Fucking
right.
hell, bud.
Yeah.
Actually,
Brucey.
what have you?
Yeah, what's going on?
Travis, get in there and show me where the clothes are.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Got a bit sprightly there for a second.
Bernard.
Yeah.
Sidebar real quick.
We served together. Why am I so old and you so young?
Hey, because I bathe in virgin blood.
Oh,
So Bernard, see this lovely painted circle on the ground?
oh, yes, yes.
Okay. Stand in that, flex your E muscle, go to job, clothing, and select recruit.
Oh, this circle here. Oh, yeah, wait. Oh,
Almost. Yeah, keep going.
There we go.
There you go.
Outfits recruit.
And select job, clothing, and recruit.
I had nothing to do
What the
with that.
fuck are you wearing?
What?
Nothing.
Is that not it? Whoa. Is that Popeye? I remember Popeye. I went to school with him.
Alright, Bernard, follow me.
Oh, yep.
How's it going in there, eh? Oh, fuck.
Geriatric is wild. Blood for the blood god.
Looking
to
good
find
there,
extra
bud.
You're arranging it.
Oh, look, I'm ready to give prostate exams.
Jesus.
Ooh.
Come in,
I don't
Bennett.
think Ranger has.
Oh, yeah.
well, they do now.
Since there's only
Okay.
2 recruits so far, we'll jump in this office, I guess.
Not getting into an orifice.
Come on, get in there, bud. Come on.
Oh, office.
Come on,
Off
do
you go.
Oh,
Oh, wait,
Whose
actually,
orifice
we
are
haven't
we
gotten
touching?
Bennet's stuff yet.
Yeah, what orifice are we touching?
Fuck, we do
I
it.
don't want to go to any orifices.
We'll do it after.
all
Yep. Now, right. Do you know how to grab? Say, there should be a tablet. And
Sorry, you
a
had something on
there.
your-
Do you
on
know how
your-
to get
on
it
your
out?
tush
Like
there,
put
mate.
an MDT.
Is it attached to a muscle?
Anyway.
It will be, yes.
Oh, it won't be been out in a while since I flexed that muscle. Give me a
Yeah,
moment.
that's what I'm thinking. So, maybe do some warm-ups and... Yeah,
Is there a name for that muscle that might help me find it?
You'd be thinking about toggle MDT, I believe.
Thank you.
Toggle MDT. Where is it? Odd.
you doing?
Gizmo.
Entertainment.
Other menu. Where would it be?
He just does his own thing. We don't ask questions.
I used to have it on something like really easy, but I don't remember. It's been so long.
You should be asking questions, eh?
Oh, right. I didn't press that.
Well,
Can create some entertainment.
Like, where the fuck are your eyebrows, bud?
Oh! I think I got it. I just need to be on duty.
Please not give fucking Bernard a heart attack here, please.
Yeah,
Wait, do you have eyebrows?
How do I get on duty?
Dude, thank you very much.
Take the glasses off, eh?
I can't take the glasses off, eh? Sorry,
okay,
everyone shut up.
recruits. If you could both pull out the MDT here, I'm going to quickly walk you guys through it in a speed run fashion.
To say that I need to do a duty to use this bloody MDT.
You duty? Yeah. Oh, yes, you need to go on duty.
Don't worry, Jack's off. I
Oh.
saw that, mate.
Where's the toilet then to do a duty?
Duty.
No, flex you like Z muscle or something, eh?
Z muscle, just to, get on duty.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, look at that. I can see.
Yeah, we'll run it through really quickly. So announcements, those are from leadership. That's basically about, stuff that we need to announce. So you see the most recent ones saying that it's disappointing that people are running around with MP5s.
Well,
I should be doing that, shouldn't I, Jester?
So these are people that we're actively chasing, actively, trying to question, or they've got.
Look, this music's a bit loud.
Be on the lookouts for. So those are posted by any officer. Let's say they get into a chase, or there's a person of interest they want to talk to. That's where they put it in. There's our moving on to our dispatch. So this will show where all our calls are. So we can actually see where Bernard got lost. Up in was it Bendigo, Bernard?
Yes. I agree.
Well, oh, was it lost? I was constructively walking.
But yeah, so there's that there. You can see all the active calls that come in here. You can see units. So we're going to pick on Travis there. So we'll get you both to join Travis' unit.
Every arrest I get younger.
We actually need a call sign, but I'll do that quickly. I'll do that soon.
Hey, where's the nearest ATM?
The bank.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Are you all good, Bernard?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yep, perfect. Profiles, very simply, that's just everybody's, government records. So you'll be able to go in there. Let's pick on someone. Just pick on anybody really. You'll be able to see their number, date of birth. You'll be able to see things like their licenses, the vehicles they own, weapons. You'll also be able to
just keep doing it.
past charges and reports that they've been linked to. Right, moving on. We've got our vehicle section. So that's basically every vehicle that's registered in the state. We pretty much have records through mail roads. Same with the weapons database. The ammunition, every time a gun's purchased, it gets logged as to who owns that weapon. If you also find a weapon that is unregistered, you can add it as a weapon. Potential. Be on the lookout for a weapon. Right, so that's that. Quickly reports. We'll go to the last one, which I think was a stolen motor vehicle report. So you can see there, that's where we put in the reports. You can see you can add tags depending on what division. You can add in the suspect and their crimes. This is also where you would issue a warrant for. So this stolen motor vehicle one is actually a warrant.
That's a fat rip. I'm sorry, guys.
If we were actually charging them, looks pretty much similar. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much that. The other thing is
The random time
once
it's
you're in the
dirty.
station, we've got really good administration staff that work here, so you can just basically add evidence to a report, and they'll come and take it out of your pocket and run it off down to the downstairs. Right, charges. These are all our charges. I'm not expecting you to go over those right now, but that's basically what you can charge people with so far. Roster, again, not really important for you guys to know at the moment. That's just basically showing all our police officers. But what is important for you guys is policies. So that's going to list all the standard operating procedures that you guys are going to sort of need to know as a day-to-day officer. More important for you guys at this stage will be the FTO program. So that's just going to list all the competencies that you guys are going to have to sort of be all over before you get promoted. Right, so that's a really brief rundown of the MDT. Any questions from you both so far?
Nah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Cool. Well, one of these officers is gonna actually we'll open it up to the floor if you wanna leave the office now, and somebody can take Oliver out, and then we'll get Mr. Whittaker.
I think Brucey wants to take Oliver out.
Ready to rock?
Yep. Where you go? And that's right. I ran him through it again. Bernard, if you just wanna Travis.
Looking good
Actually,
there,
no.
eh?
Jed, go unlock the armory and tell Bernard what to buy, please.
Okay. Oh, does he have all the money for it, eh?
Here, I'll give you some cash just in case.
Oh, definitely not.
Give it to the old man.
No, I'll give it to you just in case, you know, and if he needs
More, eh? It's like 7.
Yeah, there you
Here we go, bud.
Or some emotes we
Okay,
can
old
do.
man, come
Yeah.
with me, eh?
Alright.
Just constable.
Where do you hail from? You sound like...
Don't worry about it, eh, bud? This way, eh?
I'd say he's still special.
Okay, go ahead and open up the fucking armory, eh?
Alright.
Or actually, how much money do you have on you, old man?
$1,500.
Hey guys, I just noticed, why does the vest and the belt both have handcuffs?
Blood for the blood god. Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sort your outfit out.
Alright.
In the general armory?
I know. Yeah,
You know, can you find that one, old man?
Yes.
You know what it is? He just assumes we're gonna
I don't
need
think it was
like...
the
Alright, yes.
Found it, eh?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yes.
Right, you need
Yeah,
one
I'm
police
pretty
access
sure it
card,
was also a sergeant that set it up.
But, yeah, look, I
one
think
jail
what's happening
management
is-
tablet,
Photo on the...
a taser. You got those 3?
Yes.
Alright. Let's see here. We also need a service pistol too. So, you know, either the normal pistol or the revolver.
Should we just get a revolver?
Whoever I am.
Alright, yep.
My name is... What is my name again?
Yep.
Kenna Blackwell.
Alright, what are we up to now?
I've just done
Bud?
service pistol.
Yep. Buy it? You bought it, eh?
Yeah, do I buy all this?
Buy all of what, bud?
Police access card, tablet,
Buy all
taser.
of that, bud?
Yep, it's all bought.
Okay. Go to the normal kiosk.
Yeah,
Want to get yourself a radio?
yep.
Police badge if you really want it.
Down the bottom here.
Alright.
Plate carrier?
Is it job outfits?
Yep.
Need a bit of armor, eh?
Oh, how much would you recommend, sir?
I'll just do like 2 at the moment, eh? Because it's a little bit expensive, bud. But you know, once you're on duty for a long time, it's not too bad, eh, bud?
Alright.
Okay, is that everything? Oh, almost forgot, eh?
Especially that bearded.
Oh,
Get some taser cartridges, eh? In a fucking police folder.
I did ammunition too, what did I?
So, you know, we'll go over the MDT first. I don't want to interrupt the
Yeah, I didn't get any ammunition for my pistol.
Oh, you might need that too, eh?
Alright. How much ammunition do you recommend an officer to carry?
Do like 200, eh? Oh, 100 rounds.
Yeah, no worries. Alright, I've got all that now.
Yes, that's everything, eh, bud?
Alrighty.
Got police folder.
There's the other one.
Oh, I've got the folder. Oh no.
Hand it to them.
Got body armor. Got ammo.
The innocent one.
Jail management tablet. Oh, you do have the police access card though, right?
Let me check. Yes.
Perfect. That's what's going to be able to let you in and out of the fucking station, eh, bud?
Oh, the building. Oh,
It does look frail.
Okay.
There's 44 if I got the Magnum too. Thank you.
Everything, eh? All the other stuff you can just come back and get. Okay, bud.
alright. Yep.
Oh, you bought it all, eh?
Yeah, I just forgot. I got the wrong ammunition for my bloody pistol.
Why fart and waste it when you can burp and taste
Oh, yeah,
it?
just buy it, eh?
Yeah, I've got the right one. Yeah, it's right to go back in there. Yep. Oh,
Okay, if
Alright.
anyone else is on duty, we got a very sprightly recruit here needing an FTO if anyone's around.
I'll move this stuff all around in my buddy
Original,
pockets.
what's his name, eh? Fucking... The tall one.
ID card, driver's license,
So you
government
can give
payment.
it
Age is
Mr.
advanced, his knowledge base is not.
Yeah, so you'll be going out with Mr. Kempson. We'll take you down and show you the garage.
Show him the toilets first, eh?
Yeah, you know what? That's, yeah.
oh, don't worry about that. I'm wearing a diaper.
Fuck me, bud.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Oh,
get him down
I
there.
can't come down staircases. Which level is it?
There's an elevator here for you.
Which level is it?
Yep. So
Ground
it's
floor,
the
eh?
basement.
Basement.
There you go.
Thank you, by the way, Raven. I wasn't paying attention.
Could get you a walking stick, maybe.
Yeah, I was trying to find mine, but I've left it somewhere.
Fucking hell, bud.
Right, so this is our garage. Our garages are over there, but this is actually the officer you're going to be going out with.
Oh no.
Two really good officers here that are going to train you really well. Be very
Oh,
gentle on
Maui,
this one.
stop it.
Try not to drive too fast, eh? You might fucking
Very
shoot
gentle
himself, bud.
because
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. If
A lawsuit.
Yeah.
Waiting to happen.
but yeah, good luck. God be with you.
Godspeed, eh, bud?
Thanks, boys.
It's always the law to wear a suit to your bloody your first day of work. I didn't even wear a suit today.
That's alright, we don't need suits where we're going.
Well, we going to Disneyland.
What was that, sorry?
We're going to Disneyland.
No, we're going to the store to get some food, because I'm bloody hungry.
Beauty.
What was your name? Was it Bernard?
It's Bernard. You can call me Bernie, though, if it's easier.
Oh, Bernie, I like it, I'm Levi, mate.
My racist question.
Is that Lee?
Levi, you could call me Lee if you like.
Boy!
Whichever floats your boat, man.
Alright.
I'm just fetus.
Well, it's not really
Let's go grab food too.
more like a refrigerator in the back of a
Right.
medical marijuana.
Me just organising my pockets. Really did not need all of
You have to ask for a special pot muffin, and then they take you in the back.
the 9mm ammo, but that's alright. I'm not racist either. I won't be. I'm a good boy.
Who cares? I'm going home to eat that muffin. If I call you later, just humor me.
What the fuck?
Alrighty.
Do I have to do anything to this fucking...
No,
I got me plates, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because it's, you know, obviously on the dashboard here.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
I mean for like when I put it into my car, when I turn it on.
Oh, when you turn it on in your
Well,
car, you gotta
wait
turn it
on.
on,
Done.
hold both.
Done.
MIT, and then...
Oh, like Levy?
I do same and
Yeah, I'll start calling him Levy for sure. I can be a little bit racist. I do it on the nose. But not too racist.
Which is the best way to go about it.
Like, not actually racist.
Audio, what's happening?
That's right, not correct.
Where's the...
I think the best thing for new recruits in community engagement with you, Bravo.
Oh, join your bloody unit, shouldn't I?
Okay, I can't get rid of the fucking handset from my screen now. From my eyes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay. Hey, now we're on it. Thank you. It's been a while since I've set that up, not gonna lie.
Yeah, look.
It's good seeing people getting set up, but...
Better to do it, but fuck off, idiot.
To get a recollection of what muscles I had set up in my plate lock.
It's normally your numbered ones.
Yeah, I think they're set up to fly.
Actually works well for not remembering what the keys are.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It works.
There's no community to engage with.
No one's bloody sitting down there waiting for paychecks. Like the good old days.
Yeah, it's a different world, mate. Different
Gonna go
world.
chuck some personalise your outfit a little bit there, Bernard.
I just need a cane, mate. That's all I need.
A cane?
Yeah, can you get them from the bloody clothes shops?
Oh, I wouldn't imagine so, no.
Oh, bugger. Always have a look anyway.
Yeah, look.
Copy.
Oh, look at that. Another catch done, Sunken. If you do exclamation mark Bill's PC, you better see what Pokemon you've got and what they're worth, because you can actually sell them for chips too. And while it's a multi on, you make a bit of money. You can bulk sell, individually sell, you can keep them. What do you... Surely there would actually be a cane. Worth looking for, because it might be in accessories. Is it going to cost money though? A lot of that stuff, yeah.
You could deliver?
Why? What's up?
In my eyes, you're just standing.
Yeah, I'm just
in the air. Just in the air.
But yeah, in commands as well. If you go have a look at that list, there's a whole bunch, obviously. A bit more. It helps you go through it and how you can value it and sell it.
I don't know. You pull in there. You never know. You never know.
I don't think we're going to find anything new though.
Like a fat cunt every time I eat burgers. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know. Mainly because you have to eat like 8 of the cunts to get full, you know? Like,
You can always ask. Where can I find a cane?
For later, because they go off super quick.
yeah. Although you can go get.
I'm going to change his sunny, so.
I think it never used to be like that. No, it did. Never mind. The sprunks that, those. They don't have
Sunny's done.
expiration. Yeah.
I knew that it's water.
I'll give him a hat.
Yeah. I think colas do that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Berets. No, that's not going to work. Ultra berets, classic berets, too small. I'm just going to have my hair poke out of that. Perfect.
Oh yeah, I've got a bit of headwear now. I'm going to get sunburn.
Oh, that's a pretty fly little cap you got there.
Very nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
I like it.
Alright, let's get on the road.
Alright, let's go.
Not much going on tonight at the moment. Hopefully it picks up.
Right, we have to go some radaring or something.
Exactly.
There he goes. Sit on the highway and go catch the fucking illegal speeders.
You know. Legal speeders.
Community engagement around the city.
How goes the stream? It goes alright.
People down at the the warehouses.
It goes alright. Yeah,
Oh,
the
dear,
police
dear,
induction is Bernard.
Yeah.
Go down
And yeah, just go and have a little suss around. You're stuck at loading screen. Just hold on, bro. If you use your F8 and have a look, you'll see that it's it'll still be loading through. It just stays at 99% because there's some larger resources that take a while to load in.
So glad this thing isn't as loud.
So but like legit, if you just have open your F8 and that's still moving, you're still loading.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
It's a common issue. Once you cache it once though for your first time, it's a lot better.
Yeah,
Oh, you definitely could still make induction Lego. Just hit something up in the police Discord, the channels. I'm sure that people will get you in there. It's only, oh, it is half hour late though.
Oh, that's a nice car.
Is that someone's car?
No,
There are people around, so if you do get in, I'm sure. At least set your character up. I'm down here, I'm cashing stuff for the first time.
Fuck, she's a slow one tonight.
Yeah, usually something going on by now. There's not much around.
Well, it was the only 2 calls mine and the shots fired.
Well, at least we still get paid.
Yeah, so 1 plus was mine.
The only 2 calls made was mine and the shots fired, hey?
That's,
I was wondering
yeah,
if that was yours.
correct.
I was just going for my afternoon walk. I wasn't lost, alright?
No, fair enough.
A pretty hectic walk up in Bendigo, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit worried there. I might have to take one of those express flights or something, but these people came and saved me.
Oh, that's lovely of them.
Yeah. Yeah, picked him up.
Beauty bell.
What's the usual night and day? What's the busiest, like, what sort of calls do we get, sorry?
Usually a lot of house robberies, shots fired here and there, bit of harassing locals goes on a bit too. We did have a bit of a store robbery streak there for a bit, but that seems to have died off. So.
They're not as brazen anymore, eh?
Yeah, not sure why.
I think they got sick of being caught.
Probably.
Well, that was a fucking big thing last night. Not talking about that at all.
Two functioning as police officers.
That is a stretch.
Oh, there's someone coming. Is that a park ranger?
And she'd be.
Oh, it's a 4B. Yeah. Server just started. Not many people in. Yeah, there is a few people in.
I was going on today though. I was on duty earlier and there was drug.
It's actually not doing too bad.
Yeah, okay.
It's been peaking about 30.
You snapped some photos and shit?
No, there was a set of drug calls coming from one area and then a set from another area, and then when I got to one, the other area would start. And, yeah, very well organised.
Interesting.
I don't remember what all my keys are. I don't. I bloody well don't.
Sorry, 260.
Yeah.
I can go see if the cast is open, eh?
Yeah, might as well, eh? Get that early spin. Normally you see, buddy, someone floating around usually.
Too busy hiding in the pubs and clubs Saturday night.
What it is.
There should be plenty of degenerates in here.
Oh, someone here.
Oh.
Help me.
Oh, what the fuck?
I'm getting chased by officers.
This little man has been highly aggressive.
Aggressive?
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's assaulted officers.
It's little man
Hey,
syndrome, alright? You guys
Brucey,
know what
isn't
it
this
is.
the same guy we ran into here the other day?
No.
I think it is.
No,
I think it is too.
Wait, is that a buddy?
Go back to your fucking pokies, mate.
Is that a leprechaun?
Willy Wonka, you fucking look at ya.
You fucking What?
Is that a fucking leprechaun?
Sir, slow down.
How fast was he going?
Yeah, look at him go.
Might
Look
have,
at
to,
him go.
might have to clip his fucking wings.
Fucking 8 kilometers an hour, mate. Slow down.
Oh! Hey!
Assaults on police officers. Get him!
He can't be doing that.
Get out of the way, sir.
Get him, recruits. Get him. Get him.
Get him, recruits. Get him.
Get his ass, Olive.
Oh, that's
Get cuffs on him and throw a head back.
Oh, how do you... Oh!
Get him, Olive. Get him.
Oh! Come here, you little bastard.
Come on, Grandpa.
Oh!
Get the old fella some roids or something.
Oh!
She got him. She fucking got him.
I feel like this cunt has a fucking VIP subscription
Oh.
to the fucking ambulance service.
He's got shadowed.
I think our job here is done, boys.
Yeah, I agree. All right. You guys
You
go
enjoy
hit your
rest of the
pokies. We're out of here.
Where's the police brutality?
Fine
Oh.
police work. Fine police work, guys.
Fuck. Don't forget the police brutality.
Everything you love in one
What's going on here? A quick love tap. I tased the shit out of him. Wait on. Yeah, you got no hair. Piss. Oh, I'm not gonna do that on him. That's how you shouldn't just piss on him. What isn't it, is tackling shift, it's shift, space and E at the same time, I'm pretty sure.
Is he alright out there, Banana?
Oh no, he's very knocked out.
Yeah, copy.
Yep.
Oh. He's unconscious, he's not remembering anything. We'll just, you know, just leave him there.
Yeah, it's not our problem.
Yeah. Oh,
Shift E when jumping.
Take him to the hospital.
Oh, wait a minute,
Anyone's
gambling.
won this thing yet? Surely no one's won it yet.
How's this work? Oh, do you need to get one of the things from over there or something?
Yeah, you gotta talk to the cashier lady. You buy a VIP pass and then she gives you...
Oh!
Fuck.
No way. Drinks.
Fucking drinks.
Yuck.
Fucking Gilby.
Oh, that's not good.
Right.
I'm gonna grab a thing quickly.
Yeah, you're right. No way.
Oh, it's gonna be annoying me walking everywhere, isn't it? Oh, man, we're gonna get the old man roids. We're gonna get the old man roids, so definitely be a bit better. How you doing there, Chippy? What's crack like with you Saturday? I was kicked back at home, brother. I was role playing. What games were you up to? You just watching fucking Shanksy stream Forza 6? Making me jealous. I wish I pre-ordered it. What if the leaks are true about GTA 6? Glad I didn't. But yeah, no, I'm actually pretty keen. You know, I was looking at my games list, being like, what can I buy? What can I play? I want to play something.
How can I help you? I hate this city.
Hey, look at that VIP pass.
Hello.
I'm gonna trade in these chips.
Here you go.
And we have a Nido Queen. There we go. But unlucky, it was one shake. No way. What the fuck? Sorry, no, has it? Slightly too quick. There's other types of Pokeballs too. There's like Great Balls and Ultra Balls and Safari Balls and balls that are better at night. What the fuck was that? Elite Dangerous. I actually own Elite Dangerous and I have a flight stick and stuff behind me. I'll fix that timer up, as it said. Doesn't do that to you every time. That's pretty annoying.
Too slow for you. You're quick as. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Come on, old boy, put you back in it.
Show me money, brother.
Another player is trying the lucky win big or remain a disappointment in life.
Fucking drinks, mate.
What else?
Mate, you got it. 3K, yeah.
Oh,
Better than no K, mate.
it's better than the super that Labour keeps stealing from me.
Yeah.
Better than the
yeah.
fucking drinks, I got that's for sure.
Yeah, do you want to go get yourself $600 worth of drinks so you at least get your money back?
That's good policing, that is.
Gamble 50k. What a win! What a win!
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's a 2 times multiplier for weekends, so you guys get 2 times chips.
Yeah, I guess so.
As you probably just noticed.
Yeah, right. Have a big, shall we? You gonna read me out the plate on that one for me, Bernie?
Alright, it's 1QJ856CN.
Comes back to a Tommy Hansen.
Tommy Handsome.
Owned by a Tommy Hansen.
But yeah, Elite Dangerous, bro. I'll actually have to, I'll download it again because I have it. I already own it. I just like try to play it for a little bit and I was like, oh fuck, flight games, bro.
Anyone else saying this?
Oh my god. Hey, is that bloody Puss in Boots? Should we be taking a photo of this and seeing it to the tabloids like MTV?
I don't know. Could we take care of it?
What, smoke it?
Well, you never know. Well,
The cat or the plant?
better not. Nah.
The cat, obviously.
Yeah. The plants. That's a crime. We would never do crime.
That's a delicacy somewhere.
Maybe. There's a guy in that seat.
Oh, that's why.
Fucking shoved over an injured man, jeez.
Oh,
Was it that bald guy we bloody murdered?
Oh, where is he? Is he still in the car?
Yeah.
Our windows are too fucking thin.
Oh no. Unfortunately, he's still in my peripheral vision. I can see him.
Yeah. That Tommy Blake.
Slots 10k.
No.
Rigged. Yeah, look, everyone's going to enjoy the double money. No goods, mate. But yeah, every weekend it's a double multiplier and I can change it.
License, no warrant.
Yeah, fair enough. No reason to stop it.
What's this guy's name? Oh my god, 800k.
See, mate.
Did you just win the jackpot?
Yeah, he's not feeling too well.
In a bad way. In a bad
Fuck
way.
me. Too much money going around. I would have stopped letting you guys have chips. There's blackjack and bloody roulette as well. I said, mate, do you want to suss that out?
Like,
Really, 30 million chips.
like taxis.
Fuck. I'm not doing any more raffles. You can do raffles to give away chips. Oh, you gotta do bet numbers. Blackjack's not set up like everything else because I haven't modified it.
Fuck, this thing does not.
Oh, did it work? Oh, I'm tripping. Don't mind me. Yeah, have fun with that.
Noticeably slower too.
Yeah.
You have too many chips covered in slots.
It's got a blink.
Oh. Oh, I've still got a bit of muscle about me. What happened to you, sir?
Upsies.
And oopsies, mate. I think you slipped on that very smooth forehead of yours.
No.
What? You've broken yourself, mate. Drag.
There you go, sir.
Thank you, friend.
Holy fuck, bro. Oh my god, what the fuck? I've not seen this many chips. You gotta test out this math system and see if you can break it.
You fucking slow night otherwise.
You really test out this system. 83 million fucking chips, bro. I'm rich for once in my life.
You got any, we're on fire. That's not good.
Oh, that is definitely not good.
Let's drive faster and go out.
Good idea. Yeah. They fixed it. There you go. You're right. Oh.
They're doing the slots. No, it's because it's the 2 times, and yeah, it's like 5 times your bet, like 10 times your bet. You get a certain amount of emotes.
I got 2 on.
I read it out the other night, like the actual odds and that. It's pretty good though. I should probably lower it, especially if 2 times is on. I'm just watching you guys do this. Fucking menaces. Oh, 227 million.
So you're not even up to no good yet, Bernard?
No, I did. It was pretty quiet a bit ago, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 300k.
So you just unlocked it.
Yeah, and I just locked it.
The jackpot pool. Oh my god, that jackpot pool is crazy. I'm glad that there's like actually a full economy, but like you earn chips from watching, and there's chips you can buy stuff. You can buy eggs. I'm pretty sure, like Pokemon eggs. You can give them away as well. I'll look up the commands for that later. Maybe stuff like that.
I don't want to steal the interceptor. You've reached HR. The message maker is currently full, and you can lodge your complaint with someone that gives a fuck. Thank you for calling, and do not call back.
Buy egg.
What the fuck is that monstrosity?
That's Jed.
Hello, Peter.
Hey.
What's going on, mate?
What?
You want to tell you that it doesn't work there?
Yeah, I feel that.
No,
Just getting it checked, to be honest.
Oh, I thought we made the other one, HR.
You mean the other one? You need to find that.
Where are they?
The other one to find that, please.
Upstairs.
There's an air vent right here, so if you're just normally speaking, the air vent sort of carries. But if you're like whispering,
No, it
was
it's not
was it 2 months ago when I did all this?
Feel bad for the recruits, Jack Smith. There's not much going on.
We also changed the Pokeballs
have
I
you
currently
thought about
equipped.
shooting criminals?
Trainers and stuff.
There's no criminals to shoot. Yeah.
Oh, there's got to be at least like 3.
Oh, that's kind of what I assumed, but
also.
Actually, that's not true, Alan.
What the?
Hey, I can shoot just fine.
You guys can get your Pokeball on stream. Or if give chips
Someone should really close up
give
these
chips
vents.
amount user like that.
Yeah, I can like hit you clearly. I'm worried the fucking building's gonna collapse on me.
Yeah, mate, this is like made out of paper mache.
Jeez.
Maybe the canines might be onto something when they try to run away as soon as they come out of their kennel.
There's also a Pokedex feature. You can see how many Pokemon you've caught.
That's
like I said,
not
I'm sure
appropriate
eggs.
use of equipment, is it?
Please get them out of my car before you get blood all over my seats.
Excuse you.
Rude.
You're excused.
Very nice. I would never point a gun at a fellow officer.
I wasn't pointing a gun at a fellow officer.
Whoa.
That's just...
Oh, what did Bernie do?
Wrong person, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Bernie, you right, mate?
That's the one I wanted to hear.
No, I was lateral.
I think they've already killed the old recruit.
No, we did it.
No, I haven't been tased yet. It's alright.
Hey!
Yeah, no, right.
Oh, this is just ridiculous.
I do not want to be here for that.
This is just rude.
I'll be back.
Something that was attached in his key bindings.
No, help. Help.
I'm just standing.
Travis just.
Where is it? Listen up, police.
We've lost another good one today.
One sit up and Tilda.
Are they arrested?
I'm just not looking.
Pieces.
I'm just not looking anymore. Where's the one that said on Tilda? I need to change that to comma. Psycho proximity. Alright. And that means now MBT calls focus will work.
What you can do with those bad boys?
Sweet.
Have a tight little rosebud.
He knows what this mouth can do.
You guys are menaces, bro.
You make him commander.
Yes.
You guys are absolutely menaces.
Sorry, there's something in my throat.
Now, why is buy egg not working?
Shame.
Bruce is very tall.
Mm-hmm.
Very climbable.
Bastard.
What do you mean, those?
It's just because I didn't put the amount in. Silly.
You kept stealing my car.
Oh, bravo, you're alive.
I didn't steal nothing.
What did you say fuck me for?
Yeah, there you go. Try buying an egg. Buy a couple eggs. You can have 3 and they hatch over with watch time.
She does not like the glide, though.
No, she doesn't.
120 mil.
Car that just glides around a corner. I don't have to brake.
Top chips. Fuck, you just get up to the top there too. I'm not even paying attention to this. Hey, Atrix, how you going? I'm doing a quick 50k raffle for you guys to chat. There's a 2 times multiplier on, so as you can see, everyone's enjoying the bloody gambles.
This is Bernard.
Bernard.
Oh, sorry, I'm a bit hard of hearing sometimes.
Remember, like, was that Christmas movie? The Santa Claus? It was a guy named Bernard in that. That's how I'm remembering it.
Wasn't that a dog?
This whole time. True 1%er.
Thinking of some other Christmas movie with a dog named Bernard.
Look, there's every chance. Yeah.
Isn't that a Saint Bernard? Like the top joke.
Yeah. What was that other one? Beethoven, wasn't that a Saint Bernard?
Oh, probably, man. You tested my memory now.
That's a while ago.
Isn't that a musical composer?
He is. Yeah, he was. Is still technically, I guess.
I don't think he's technically much anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think this is fucked. You guys are fucked with these chips, bro.
Come on, someone's got to do something soon.
250 million. Buy some eggs.
Big Trev.
Fuck all.
That's
Yeah.
Same, mate.
Oh, it's the highest I've ever seen it too. 250 million is actually pretty crazy. There should be an award for that. I don't know what's going on, Gunny. These guys worked out a fucking glitch that is 99999 in the slots.
Getting money type shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. As long as you get a couple that are the same, it wins. And the more that it wins, I have to turn the fucking the odds down on this 540 billion. I'm actually just in shock watching it go up and up and up.
Did you hear that?
That was a big explosion.
It was a meteor strike, I believe.
Well, those were the CSIRO owned those.
Own the meteors?
Yes, government property.
I don't know.
We could definitely make the argument.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Good question, actually.
What's the jackpot at? I don't know. We got to 1 billion. Does it get to 1 billion?
Wouldn't you like argue that
My Panto is faster.
whoever's property it lands on is the owner?
Isn't there that provision that like the government owns like a foot below the soil line anyway?
That's all I do.
That's how they get away with taking our oil.
When you've got like underground services and shit, yeah.
Oh, that does make sense. That does make sense.
1.6 bill, 1 bill. Oh my god. Gamble all by hazard and he lost it all, bro. No. Someone get raw and tell him that he's only got fucking, he's not there. It's you don't need a space there. Rip back to my broke life. I'm actually concerned. Maybe I do need to turn the slots down.
Oh yeah, that's a big no-no.
That's your big no-no.
And you have no Pokeballs. Give tips. I'd give him a tip.
As of
Gamble law. Bring the economy back. Come on, Gunny. Gunny agrees. Gunny thinks it's gone too far. He was rich as well, and he's sad now.
yeah, it's fucking all basic shit. What people should understand anyway.
I know, but people are stupid. Remember?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You got to give that one a solid read, Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie. Make sure you read that. It's very important.
Read? I haven't read since bloody 1995.
I believe in you, mate. You need me to read it out for you?
Which policy is this?
Very bottom one.
Very bottom. Police officer conduct.
Alright. Corruption and misconduct? Yep.
I'll try to read this out to you guys in chat. Corruption and misconduct. I can read it in Spurdy's voice.
Corruption and misconduct. As a police officer, you are held to a high standard of trust. You'll be also privy to confidential information. As an officer of the law, you are expected to always uphold the rights of civilians you are dealing with and treat people fairly and equally. Officers are expected to understand and follow the police SOPs outlined in the MDT. Officers are not to break the very laws they are policing, and breaking of the laws may or may not result in a misconduct action being taken. If you are being pulled aside by leadership, you can request to have a support person or a lawyer in the room with you. However, this is at the discretion of leadership if it is to be allowed. Police leadership or back in the courts are able at any time to administer punishment for corruption or misconduct. These punishments include, but are not limited to, standing down an officer from duty, demotion of rank, removal of certifications, removal of job, and instigation of criminal charges. IMAC can also remove your visa to the city.
Oh, fuck off. Back to 1 bill.
Honestly, going too far out.
Out of the bed.
What do you reckon, Olive? You want to whip around in this thing for the night?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get you. It's pretty easy to get your head across.
Honestly, he's the new recruiter, so.
What was that?
Pretty easy to get this across.
Yeah.
Did you really? And we didn't do shit to you. No fucking searching,
I
nothing.
used to do a good read on it. I like to test on it at the end of a shift, just random bits.
Alright, try to look into my memory.
Yep.
Just don't break the laws. I'm retiring back to the richest like the old days. 1.2 billion, 200 mil. Like, I'm gonna give myself some fucking chips and buy an egg.
I'm downstairs.
They're meant to be going away. Been given away randomly.
Oh.
I want to come see you.
Jesus Christ. You guys can also trade Pokemon too if you did want to. Oh my god. Now Chippy's in on it. Give me your chips. Get into it.
Ready to whip this shit around. We'll take
I should go after those guys back upstairs.
earn some money. Do you want to drive around for a little bit? I'm going to go with my head for a minute. We're going to go practice some jumps.
35% tax on all winnings. Yeah, I'll take it straight to the bank, bro. That's my tax. Did they go upstairs? I'm assuming so. Oh, I did get on radio.
Never look.
Let me clean it up.
Oh, here's Lego.
That was from a beanbag.
I still only got the amber selection because I was working amber before. Funny.
Is it maybe a refly thing, you think, Maui?
It could.
Yeah, potentially. And move it, so you can move straight to
What is this?
That was rude.
Oh, that was payback.
Is this thing on? Is it functioning?
Hey, fair, mate.
Thank you.
Alright, beautiful. Still got all done. Now we're both broke. Is everyone broke, dude? What the fuck did you guys all do, man? You guys, I just looked away for a minute.
Yeah, I got the notification, but it's not in.
Aussie's at the 1 bill and Raw's at 2nd. You guys are fucking, man. This is, bro. You need to calm down. Let's get it together, brother. Oh, fuck.
Now, can you give me tags in the MDT?
No, I'm broke.
Have you got all your equipment, Bernie?
I think so. I can have a look through it and see if I need anything else.
Well, your main things, you know, pistol, taser, nightstick.
Yeah, I just don't have a baton.
Bags,
Nope,
flashlight.
nothing.
It's not a massive
Yeah, it
issue.
might be a refly thing, sorry, mate. Bit of stuff around, sorry.
Police folder.
Yep. Yeah, you got that one.
Yep. Got your plate
Added.
carrier and some plates.
Yeah, yep.
All your evidence stuff. Did you get a jail management tablet?
I did. I didn't get any evidence stuff. I should go grab some of that.
Yeah, grab some DNA, GSR, and some baggies.
It is kind of broken.
I'll go grab some now then.
And I know K9 well because I had to learn it.
It was kind of broken.
In the city.
I will go and change the... Oh no! You already had VIP, lad, though.
They're a bit annoying to use.
Now you got the extra 2 times as well for being VIP. Bow.
Mine likes to just roll over in the back seat and die. I don't know why.
You can redeem it 1,000 times over. Oh, get the baton.
Yeah, it's like a
Baton acquired.
Can someone take my glasses off for me so I can... Thank you.
Stop it. Get some help.
That's what I was looking for too. Thank you. Get some help. Let's stop it, but I'm broke. You guys have more chips than me. I don't give myself chips, man. I just don't do it. I'm just a good boy. I only give myself chips to test things. Evidence container. I think we want one of those. Put you in a VIN kit, right?
Actually, yeah, that's something I was curious about as well.
I can have help now. It's called being broke. I'm a chip tester, okay? I'll give it all out there, everyone.
What are you curious about?
Oh yeah, baby. I can buy an egg now.
The interceptor.
Yeah, baby.
I think the person that they're running to is at the wrong station, not gonna lie.
See, I'm so rich on the Pokemon. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to do that. I want to show you guys the eggs when they hatch.
Okay.
Because, you know, I tried way too hard doing this shit.
Ah, right. You think they might be at
I tried way too hard. And you can trade them. There's IVs and that. There's just health IVs, though.
Yeah.
There's space for me to make IVs for everything else, but...
In the MDT, I worked out how to put one on there. In the roster. If you
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
Page 2. You just have to go into your own profile and edit it.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
Are these single use?
I
No
can't,
personal site, they are single use,
I can only
so...
do officer notes, I think.
No, you should be able to.
Oh, like in profiles, yeah.
In the actual
I
profiles,
you.
yeah. If you go in the profile and search someone, you can edit their photo.
Oh, that's dangerous. I'm gonna do some stuff with that.
Yeah,
Menaces.
someone that I think you're going to leave.
Like, can I just use my tablet from 4? Sweet.
I
Right.
would not.
I'll buy 3 more JSRs and
do
4
it
more
here, that'd be
DNAs.
rude.
Okay, let me
no.
upload my badge photo.
I'll be right back.
Was that person not at the front? Were they at the other station? Were they at the wrong station?
Boom, boom, boom.
Over.
Are you alright, Mr. Whittaker?
Yeah, I think so. I was just getting some more things.
Very good, very good.
Guys, I watched a movie last night called Faces of
There's a
Death.
skiddy there too.
Oh, I can't say I've heard of that one.
It's a horror movie that came out this year on Shudder.
Mm-hmm. What's it about?
Yeah.
Someone killing people and putting it on TikTok.
Oh, so that's the route we're going now.
Oh, it's like that bloody War of the Worlds with Ice Cube. Yeah, what's the world coming to?
Going to shit, mate, I tell ya.
Yep, that was just an Amazon advert.
Haha, there we go, got it.
Nice.
Dude, that as good as my window.
I'm gonna have to go get me Fragger dreads back.
I
and
saw
set
that in
one as my
the I
badge.
saw that in the roster and I was so confused when I first saw it.
Oh, Fragger dreads. No,
Yeah,
said,
Fragger dreads, mate.
no, he said that in a very poor way. Would have got me in very big trouble. Oh, fuck. I think I remember a gang who used to have red and lots of dreads. Holy shit. Holy shit. Well,
Sorry,
the
what was that,
artwork.
Bernie?
I swear, I used to remember a gang that had dreads and red bloody colouring and stuff like that. Maybe once upon a time. Hey, look at this artwork on the wall.
That ever existed, mate.
Oh. Oh, fair enough then.
Don't think that ever existed. Done dirty. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Done diddly dirty. Are we just waiting for calls? Is that all we're doing?
You just look at your emails real quick, Ken.
Who?
You.
Oh, yeah, what'd you call me?
McKenna.
Did you?
Yes, I did, actually.
I heard a hard K there, you know.
Well, yeah, it's McKenna.
No, it sounded like Cam.
What is going on?
No, I'd never get you confused with another person.
Yeah, I can't think of a single reason why someone would call you that.
Yeah, me either. Should have called myself McCam.
Yes, confuse
Also-
the person that's known you for the longest here more.
Where the hell did you come up with McKenna? Of all the names.
There's an actress named McKenna Grace.
Right. Okay.
I'll email you exactly why. Give me a sec.
Right, because it's I
I got you. I got a cleffer. See, that's sick. I made the title that before we started. It's just because your thing would have just refreshed. So his Ford's back. No wonder. Can I do stuff through here? Can I do anything in here? No. Can I change my profile through here? I don't know, just like scroll through those. Oh. Yeah, right. Well, we could go out patrolling. I just must make myself wary of the charges and whatnot. Yeah, that's what I figured because I was going to do Old Man Bernard, right?
Is there a weapons range in this police station?
Ah, there is, yes, actually,
Yes.
downstairs.
Oh, beautiful.
I think they got to figure out very quick I don't run. I'll elevator down. My bad, bruh.
There's this room here.
Oh, thank you. Was it McKenna?
Yeah, McKenna.
Thank you, Officer McKenna.
No problem.
Disregard shot fired at PD.
Oh shit, my bad.
Only if they're at a recruit. No, there's a recruit just practicing in the shooting range.
So I could get a 2-shot for that, eh? Just... Oh, that's not it. Fragger. Oh, Fragger life. Boom! Fuck. Don't wish you were doing that. Get back out of here. No, Siege, right? Fragger life. Thank you, Atrix. I just wander out of the station. Could do something funny like that. I reckon we could just do that. Wander into the garage. Which one's the garage? Over here? What the fuck? Where is the garage? Over there? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go get lost. Alright, toilets. Go kill some crims, lad. Hey, if only. I'm a recruit held by the whims of my officers. Yeah, this door here, is it? Look at that. Grab a car and escape to the outside world. This is actually a really nice MLO. I haven't looked at this properly. Better than the old MRPD. Although it has to matter on like a good to bad scale, obviously. That shit doesn't really matter at all. But I prefer this over the old one. How it looks and stuff. I wander out the front and just start wandering down the road. Yeah, it says end teams, is it? There you go. Access to the outside world, I'm assuming it's from out here somewhere. They're probably just wondering what the fuck is he doing. Oh, they're in the stream. But like... Still, what the fuck is he doing? They're not following me? Sweet, I'm escaping. Here we go. Give me the OG, no, MLO, MRPD back. Let's take us back to the fucking good old days, eh? New South Wales roleplay. Is that a bloody police vehicle there? T Studio. Oh, that's alright. That's alright. Close enough, mate. I do remember that though, the good old times, eh? Are they even gonna notice I've lost their recruit? Probably not. What time is it on the phone? Is it 20:45? That's real life time. Damn. Is it sunrise? I think it's sunrise, so if someone comes looking for me, I'm just gonna be like, I was looking for the sunrise. Actually, surely we can tow vehicles and stuff like that. This has been stolen. You are 885983. I'll do this so I can actually see it. You are 885. Alright. Yeah, I said it's 8:45. I said it's not in-game time. Did I use this vin kit? I didn't grab a vin kit, did I? Oh. I'm pretty sure they're local cars, so... Did I say the time wrong? I swear I said it was 8:40. It was real life time. What, the in-game time? What the fuck is that? Suspicious van activity. Very suspicious van activity. Yeah, in-game, bro. In-game. What are you talking about, lad? For a roleplay reason to be outside on the bridge. The fuck, is that a local though? Bro, is that a local? It is sunrise, still in game. Yeah, I was like talking about. Oh!
Bernard, where are you?
Oh, I made it to outside the garage somehow. If you come out, you'll see me.
Copy, get ready to get the car, mate. We got shit to do.
Yeah, mate.
Mel 680, priority 1 to the latest. Go 12. Correction. Go 15. Wait, where are you, Bernard? I'm in the garage. I don't see you.
Yeah, come out, sir. You'll find me.
Whole hour on route to the latest for visuals until ground units arrive.
I got lost, sir. Sorry.
That's alright, mate. 205 Pro, 1 of those 1015.
I didn't realise that was just an entry. I was giving you a bum steer. Right, we Mel 680.
205 could be under me, mate.
Or 205.
Safety code 5.
205 code 5. There looks to be 3 individuals dressed in pink with 1 black 4-door sedan out the front.
You'd say you come out and do us a favour, I think.
You want your recruit to take Pro 680, take contact, mate?
Yeah, we'll do negotiations.
What weapon aimed? Should I sit with my weapon cocked or should I stay inside the vehicle, sir?
No, we're gonna go get you. 205 is just gonna break real quick for fuel. Because we're the only highway on scene, we will stay in the vehicle ready to go.
Pursuit ready, understood, sir.
Oh, they're jumping in the vehicle!
Just try and keep eyes on them, I'm just fueling up.
Terrible timing. No negotiations made. Unlucky us. Unlucky. Big stretch by me. Alright, I need to do any of those channel points on it. Why do I still have the poker chips up on my screen? I just realised that.
Update.
Yeah, we're going to be engaging the police soon. 680 taking primary eastbound into Boulevard. Road
approaching the gas station. Now taking a right northbound Alta.
You reckon you can keep up with them, mate?
Yeah, of course. Crossing. Going north Alta now. Away. Crossing out of Sapple.
Keep an eye out. I should put my camera on high. You can see better.
Banging a north Alta.
Big thing with radio comms is landmarks.
West,
like
now
the
eastbound
direction of travel,
occupation.
what street they're on, and like any relevant
Left,
landmarks.
southbound
Yep.
on Las Aguanas.
Avoid the leftists.
Alright, we're going to be heading right westbound onto Dorset, minor code 12 with the Panto, swinging on to, where the fuck is the 8 Mill Parkway approaching City Hall.
You doubled up?
Yep. Do you want me to do it as well, sir?
Yeah, go for it.
Continuing on down to South Boulevard Del Perro in a southeasterly direction.
Compass is wrong, this is west.
So they're going to right in the Life Invader building, go towards the golf course and Dorset Drive. Taking a right at the golf course, going towards the Playboy Mansion on West Eclipse Boulevard. Now straight to Eclipse Boulevard westerly at a high rate of travel. Oh, easterly, sorry.
Is the east and west fucked up?
Down to Vinewood Boulevard.
Coming.
Taking a ride at the police department here, going down to southbound direction of Elgin Ave. You seem to be holding an arm out the window.
Looks like you missed the finger, mate.
Oh, it's a finger going left and down towards Elgin Ave past the hospital, southbound still at a high rate of speed.
Nah, I'm not piloting it, mate. I wish I was.
Making a right now towards PDM on Adams Apple Boulevard. They're going into the construction site here next to PDM, but they've made a hard right. I think they're going to do a cheeky jump or something to get to the construction here.
Coming up, PDM side.
Yeah, now going easterly to the PDM site, they're making a left going northbound at Elgin Avenue. They're making a right through the car park in the middle of Elgin and the Bank. Come through now, going underneath the bridge towards the petrol station at Strawberry Avenue. Now at Davis Ave, go past the Maze Baker Arena. Looks like they're going to enter the highway here, going right. Repeat, that was a right on the highway on Davis Ave. And making a turn through the dirt here towards the airport.
Am I hitting them in your eyes?
Negative, sir.
Yeah, okay, so they're just really good.
They've made a left on Autotopia Parkway, sorry. You're going in the easterly direction. U-turn, I think. They've stopped at the Autotopia Parkway. Now regained a sense of movement, going back in a northbound direction. Looks like they'll be hitting the jump onto the big old green bridge thing.
They went over, they're currently hostiles on them.
Yeah, I'd assume they've gone bloody the other way or under the bridge. There's a vehicle parked on a road to our left.
black in colour, 4-door sedan.
Roger.
Those slippery bastards.
What a back to. I misjudged their speed.
You thought they'd get you on top of the highway rather than underneath it?
Yeah.
Could be inside this custom shop.
Customs is clear.
Unlucky cuz, or fat unluckyos. I'm keeping eyes open. There's another store robbery at least. Is that car from over there gone? That was sus.
Oh, I dare say we probably lost him here.
Yeah, they've got to be very far gone there. Yeah, we still haven't regained ours here at the bloody airport on this black sedan. I dare say we've lost ours. There was 3 assailants all dressed in pink in a 4-door black sedan. Last seen around Torpio Parkway at the airport or Mazebank Arena area.
Yep, that's that.
Yeah. Oh, 360. Oh no.
Sent it too hard.
Oh no.
We're on the billboard.
Oh.
Well, this is awkward.
Are we stuck?
Yeah, that's a solid copy on that one, Bernie.
Well, this is a good view.
205 to Marco.
Tender.
Yelp.
Look a glove.
Help. Door stuck.
On my way.
That's actually pretty funny, I'm not gonna lie. Perfect timing.
So,
Come here often, do you say?
Look, this would be my first time.
Look, mate, I'd say it always takes skill to crash up here.
It definitely takes some sort of skill.
What do you think they're gonna do when they find us? I don't think we're getting down that easily.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting one for sure.
John, what was the free aim one? Was it F3? Yeah, it was F3. There you go, boom.
Yeah, just look up, Marco, and, yep.
Do like that free cam.
The fuck did you do?
I'm still coming to terms with it myself.
Perfect. You get a little angle from here. Clip this, please, bro. You guys can all clip it. Exclamation mark clip and chat. I'll clip it as well, though, for sure. I would have clipped up last night. I downloaded the stream.
What do you want me to fucking do?
I'm not sure yet. Help.
This is the highest I've been since the 60s.
Oh, wait, so.
Oh, wait. He's going to get us down.
I have an idea. Highly risky. Probably won't work.
Wait.
But maybe.
Maybe I'm too heavy for the car. I'll get out.
You have a tow rope.
Oh!
Better no!
Ah!
Bernie, what were you thinking?
I thought I was too heavy for the car.
Hang on. This is where we need to pray.
Yeah.
You got the car down after I got out. I must have been too heavy.
Oh Lord above, please pray for this elderly geriatric man. He hath fallen from great height. Please pray he delivers to us A-OK.
Moving, schmoving.
Oh, I know what he needs. He needs some fish oil tablets, and that'll get him on his feet.
Might be onto something.
So my auntie Catherine, you shut the fuck up. Those fish oil tablets won't work. They didn't work 30 years ago.
No, they're good now, trust.
Alright, well, I guess we can all go back to duty.
Yeah,
he's buried.
I guess so.
Hang on, I know where he needs to go. We need to take him somewhere. Alright, let's put your recruit in a vehicle and we'll do a procession to the cemetery.
No way, they're gonna get rid of it now. How do you enter the fucking like cinematic cam? Is there like a key for it? Is it R?
We'll take him through the city for one last ride. I think the gases are escaping. He's making noises.
Oh wait, yeah, fair, cool actually.
I think I just did. Fucking bad sounds are coming out of it. We're going faster. Yeah, I think there's decomposition happening here.
Wish I had a soundboard.
We've got a decomposing old man recruit that's fucking died, so we're taking him to the cemetery. I'm not a coroner or a fucking...
The procession for Bernard.
I did give this warning before the induction tonight, and I was the Kiwi officer sergeant name is. I'm raising my own food, so that's what your problem.
Which one's the open grave?
The other Kiwi.
I know what he's looking for. He's looking for the open grave here. This cheeky fucker.
Oh, is he Canadian? No, it sounds like a fucking Kiwi. Maybe I'm just very unobservant. I knew that we had one prepared for the old timer. I think it was actually for the commander.
We'll find it. There you go.
Alright, so we need to, we're doing like a 21 gun salute type situation.
Boom.
Yeah, chuck the barrow in there too, mate.
I think that's how he made his living beforehand, isn't it?
Alright, we want to say any final words before we let the shots ring.
Up, please, Brucey.
Alright.
3, 2, 1.
Alright, he gets 3 bullets for the 30 minutes he was on duty. Alright, back to work.
911. Newest recruit, Bernard, has been laid to rest.
Pleasure, mate.
680 is part of the lightest drug kill.
There you go. The final breath of Bernard.
I think we should probably take him to the coroner as well to just get checked over.
Well, that's not how I expected that to go.
Where's he can't do?
This role play it out now. This respawn. Is this Bernard's PK? Find while it lasted. Yeah, I just got PK'd. I didn't have a choice in the matter. I just got permanently killed. Done dirty. I'm sneezing these while this is going on for the time being. Rest in peace to the old recruit. PK'd. Come back as a decently aged character. Oh, I thought this roleplay was gonna be fun. Oh. No, I don't think I've been PK'd. Could we get PK'd? I'm sure camera was on for that. Just make it even older character. Oh, I can't do it from here anyway. Come back and I'll be 86 this time. I'm doing it. Died within your second hour, attended one call. Yeah, actually, is that it? Died in the second hour, attended one call. Oh, I'll do a 50k raffle for you guys to chat. Make sure you guys exclamation mark join, get on in there. I did not expect that, but we'll take it. That's just ultimate roleplay there, guys, right? Now I don't have to do Bernard anymore, I can just focus on Crim roleplay. That's my plan the entire time, was I just didn't want to do cop. And I wanted to just focus on Marcus Higadores, but I felt bad because I said I'd do cop. No. How the fuck do you get out of here? But I've only been in here once with Jimmy, so I can remember the way out. Oh, get on this. Get on this, that'll be helpful. Oh, I seem to have woken up in a hospital. What the heck?
What is that magic the coroner's done?
I feel like I might be losing a couple more brain cells, but I'm here.
Birdie, mate.
Oh,
You're alive.
What happened?
There may have been a precarious situation of a car on a billboard, and you thought it was a good idea to get out.
A Decarius Johnson, and he was out there billing whores. I mean, it sounds illegal.
Yeah, something like that.
Chips board. It's top
I'm
chips.
glad you're okay,
Top
mate.
chips. Mr. Aussie, how you doing though? Thank you for that little bit of roleplay. It was lovely. Yeah, it's exclamation mark. Top chips.
Oh, in the vehicle. I might need a bit of a sleep after that, though. I'm feeling pretty tired.
City Constable Bravo, you there?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
a
mate, I'm
bit of a
just
nap
over
would
the
do you good, mate.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, it was like a billion by some Aussie. He was on 4 earlier.
Yeah, we're going to take that out to our armory.
1.1 billion as well. They found out it's like there's a 2 times multiplier on weekends, and then being the VIP gives you another multiplier. So then they'll abuse some slots.
Was it warm, mate?
See.
No, like just a bit of loot pile of ammo.
But they won, so he's losing. At least there's some losses happen. And 50k is getting split between 2 people. And the winner is Thomas. No, the abuse was like you have to have the money, but you can just abuse it up pretty easily. Didn't hear him though.
Was it an altercation?
Appreciate, mate.
Because we
Miracles
were at the
happen.
fucking casino a few days back playing blackjack. Oh my fucking god.
Hey, sorry.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm blocking your number now. That upsets me.
Everybody's rich. Could be richer than Raw.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, honestly, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, all the way up here and whatnot. Yeah. No, real talk. What's your routine?
You got one really squirrely recruit.
It's just like it's naturally muscular, having to throw around twings and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah, you gotta fucking throw them around, fold them like a pretzel and whatnot.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I like doing that in my spare time too.
There you go. How much did you win to send? 54 million. Stupid money.
I'll get out of here. Alright, Shagger.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
That's alright.
Alright, you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, see ya.
We
Hey,
always catch them.
officers.
We always catch them.
What is that thing? Hope you guys catch the criminals too.
Oh!
Oh.
Jesus, it scared the shit out of me.
Oh, sorry.
I was falling asleep.
Okay.
I was tired. Have a good night. Who was that? I guess we'll never know. It's about quoting Kanye.
He's returning. Code 1, we're clearing that call.
Oh. Oh no, is he just fucking... Oh, what the fuck? Is that what happens when people crash? Dude, that's a spit out. Oh.
Alright, we're gonna set up. Let's put some people on route, see if we can try and catch whoever's doing that.
That's right behind us. Hold on a minute. Oh, it's that person there that's pickpocketing them. Hey, maybe. I've been promoted to commander. Hell yeah.
Around the back, Olive. There's a good spot up here.
Yeah, bet. One sec.
Lock this car up.
We're gonna approach from the north side, try and get on the far side of the bank, see if we can get eyes over there.
Yeah, hey firm, we're a bit more on the west side over here.
Yeah, we tried to get a location of these calls up at Barwood Boulevard.
He's walking towards me.
Oh, I guess not then. Okay, everyone's just gambling on the slots now. Will my officer be back? I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll never know.
The one time's individual Bo we were just speaking with earlier, they're having a conversation with some individuals he's approached. We've got our eyes on for a photo.
Copy. You get a shot of that photo, we'll move in for the takedown.
Oh, I've left my camera in my car.
One sec, I can take my dog.
Alright, individuals walking west now.
Where's eyes? Can I make eyes? I don't see him anymore. Am I tripping?
If you stay very still, Olive, they won't see you.
climb this here.
Good work, Olive, good work.
He did speak to me. He knew I was there.
No.
Take a little photo from up here somewhere. Is my officer going to be back though? Is my question. I don't have keys to that car. I shouldn't have turned it off. Oh. JRF 205's going to try to respond to that, I suppose.
No, disregard. Brucey's on it. Guys, just stay hidden.
Oh, it does crash my own game. No. It is very broken for owning chips, you are right. How many are you on now? Changed by 3 million. It's because of the 2 times multiplier and the other multipliers. So I'll have to go change those down. Look, I could do it live on stream and you guys can give me pointers. How's that sound? Should I just do that? You don't want me to change the odds? As if... No, wait. I gotta earn more. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. You try to put me to rest. Nah, you're right. I won't do it to you. I wasn't gonna change it anyway. I don't really... Like, chips are cool or not, but it's about spending them in stream and that anyway. That's the whole point. It's just bragging rights against other people. Did I full lose my training officer? Oh, he got... Oh. Officer Levy, I was just up the street. Have you gotten back into the vehicle?
Yeah, I should have mate. Still good.
Oh. There you are.
I was looking for you.
Yeah, I was looking at the, looking at this call up the road here. Oh, I'm sorry about your window.
No, that's right. I wasn't there anyway.
Alright, let's leave the Vinyl Boulevard area. I think we just clear out for
I won't gamble also. He's power tripped. He is. Oh, is this fellow power trip? That's right.
They just jumped at bench.
Don't call the all-ins, eh?
Yeah, it's alright. I had a quick chat with them. They're headed towards a servo at the moment. They're going to grab me some food whilst they're there.
What did I miss?
I think the recruit went down somehow. They were trying to take photos of that weird shirtless person because I think they were pickpocketing people. But I'm not too sure.
Interesting.
Was that a pursuit?
No, I don't think so. Hello.
Hello.
680 is going to be code 3, just refueling.
Hello.
Oh, hello. What do you reckon? Do we just hang out, wait for her to do it, wait for him to do it again?
Yeah, you can do.
Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I need food. I might go get something to eat while I'm waiting.
Yeah, I might fly out actually, because I've got in-head food to eat.
Alright, fair enough, fair enough.
You want another recruit?
I'll join you probably, sir. I'll join you for the other head stuff soon for a big nap or something.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, you have a bit of a nap together at the apartment, are you? Alright.
Yeah, you got a spoon.
Bit of bonding time.
Sounds good to keep these cheeks warm.
Oh yeah, flapping some cheeks.
Oh.
Oh.
We can go to the back
PRF to it.
I gamble $1 million, it's cooked. $1 billion. 6.5 hours a gamer. Mate, give them away. Give them away for free to everyone. You won't.
Bell 680 on way to latest.
Is it K15 when you arrive at Seed?
Code 5.
Code 5. 205 is now K5 at this ATM. We have what looks like 3 assailants in a red 4-door sedan. If one hostage, it seems to be a pickpocketer from earlier.
Say back or their hostage gets it.
Turkey slap. Wait, what?
Well, turkey slapping the fucking hostage.
Oh, mate, get closer, guys. Back up. Down.
Alright, I'll run negotiations for the minute.
Do you want us?
You didn't give chips there. You don't have to give me chippies, mate. Give him the fucking, give him the Aussie.
Feel free, mate, if you want.
Make my body up for this thing. It'd be horrible.
Oh!
Are you fucking serious?
You're right, sir.
Take 2, I'm fine, mate. I'm fine.
It's the amount than the user as well. Yeah. Another robbery. It's another robbery. Should we go to that one? Well, you said those two over to that one, maybe.
Likelihood is you probably go back and reattach to that one. Yeah.
There you go. Gave it to Aussie, did it work too? You gave $1 billion to Aussie, holy shit, there you go Aussie, now you're rich, mate. You're rich, brother.
Oh, there's a vehicle at sea.
5 code 5 1 BOI on there.
Have a look, eh?
Making dreams come true, 100%.
Alright, do you want to run the plate on this one?
Yep, I'll do that.
Oh, right, yeah.
Alright.
Ready?
Sure, Ed.
What's going on here, mate? What's going on here?
Just, for one, this vehicle's illegally parked, sir. And it's,
oh, sorry, mate. I
just
need to get some food, mate, alright?
There's a perfectly legal car park in there, sir.
Yeah, no, mate. I'm in a bit of a rush, alright?
Is this your vehicle?
It is, mate, yes.
You have a ID or a license on you, mate?
Yeah,
First
mate.
off, First Constable Levi Kempston, Victoria Police, mate. I've just covered your ID with mine, which is awkward, so I may need that one again.
lovely.
Dose Humphreys.
Yeah, this is registered in your name too, is it, sir?
What was that, mate?
Your vehicle, sir, is it registered in your name?
It is registered in my name, is it?
Yeah, it appears to be registered in your name.
Yeah, yep.
Dios.
Yep.
Yep. What is this vehicle?
Interesting. Yeah, it's registered in his name, Bernie. We're right there.
Yep.
The license is currently valid. So what was the reason for the park, mate?
Oh, mate, I was starving, I was absolutely hungry.
Brucey, are you actually doing negotiations here, or am I just taking over?
Just stopped here and got some food from the markets. Is that it?
Yeah, mate, yeah.
I've held
What was the hurry? I heard some sirens and I was seeing what all the commotion was all about.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, probably we're gonna be pursued if they're red and colour.
Wouldn't have been touching anything that does belong to you, sir? Just the food?
No, just the food, yeah.
Food? Oh, you seem like a trustworthy
Oh,
individual
they
that I
flipped
could
on
take
the
his word
roof.
for.
See, I got some water here.
Oh, yep.
They're back on their wheels. We were stationed there for a
You
bit.
weren't rummaging any bins for that food, were you?
No, mate,
nah.
What about for that puss on your shoulder?
What was that, mate?
What about for the puss on your shoulder? You weren't getting any food at the bins for her, mate?
Nah, mate, she doesn't eat.
Oh, that's called RSPCA or something there, sir. That doesn't sound healthy.
That's
we don't
finally like an
I don't think
abuse to me.
I don't think we need to go there, alright? We'll leave the cat out of this situation.
It sounds like that's what you're doing. You're not thinking about the cat here, sir. You're not feeding it.
Animal cruelty is a $100 fine with up to 3 actions of community service.
Yeah, well, luckily, luckily she loves me, alright? If she didn't love me, she'd be, off my shoulder.
Well, you giving that cat petrol.
He does seem quite good.
You giving it animal drugs. That should be 2 animal cruelty charges.
Nah.
Alright. No, I think he's alright.
I think I would agree with you there, Bernie. That seems like a pretty astute assessment there.
Yeah.
Well, you're a gentleman,
Let me
Humphreys.
catch you parking illegally again, Mr. Humphreys.
I'm sorry, mate.
It'll be all
Won't do it
over
again.
Red Rover for you. You got it?
Alright, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Stay safe, mate.
Highway now, we're gonna be northbound on the Leesonfield Freeway. You just a little intro to holding out.
Always watching.
Continuing northbound on the Leesonfield Freeway, 200.
He went for Wazowski.
Oh shit.
Is that a reference to the Wachowski sisters, the ones that made the Matrix?
You can try and set up parallels so we can try and take him down.
Yeah. What was that story, Benny?
Never mind, let's talking a bit of shit.
Current location is the active chase.
Hey, Fib.
Alright, catching up. I turned this radio up. Yeah, it's got alright, I think. I'm not complaining too much. I'm a bit on. I was actually thinking of getting off earlier. But that's alright. I turned this radio up a little bit.
Hanging it towards the beach at this stage. Taking the exit off Del Piro.
We've had, it was a bit quiet earlier, but we've had a fair few pursuits now.
Right, left, southbound Rockford Drive.
And of course, pursuits and criminal activity make things quite interesting, don't they? But how about you, Lego? How was your induction? Was that you I seen? I think I saw I heard you there. You're back at the loading page. Yeah, I think your ping's doing you a disservice too, because you're you're overseas, right?
Perhaps I can't see yours either. Oh, I'm not near you at the moment.
You're in Oz? Well, I have no idea. I thought you were overseas. Look at me tripping.
North on Alta, approaching the recycling centre. Passing recycling, north of Alta, slowing left.
Maybe PC. Maybe. It's probably more likely internet though than PC.
Alright, continuing, we're going to be merging north on this
Then again, I don't know. I'm only a streamer. That's why I'm getting in net next week because I'm sick of my net issues. I want to be able to stream at high quality.
Slowing right, westbound Vespucci. Passing red car garage. Continuing west on Vespucci. Crossing Power. Crossing Elgin. Approaching Mel
Yeah, I agree with that too, Lego. Yeah, probably used to assets and MLOs and stuff like that, but I don't want to speak on it and complain about too much. I haven't had too many dramas since fixing up my settings, so...
We're still going west of Vespucci. You're going to be heading towards Mirror Park. Slowing left, northbound on El Rancho.
Oh.
Left,
Nice.
eastbound on San Andreas Ave.
Up the cinematic cam.
Braking,
Oh!
banging a U-turn. We're going westbound on San Andreas.
Upstanding citizen.
Right, we're going back into Mirror Park, northbound now on Mirror Park Boulevard. On your left.
Little peanut cop car goes hard, eh?
The driver is driving quite erratically. Might need to get them drug and alcohol tested once they're in the station.
Oh, yes,
Alright, banging along the big bend on Mirror Park Boulevard, now eastbound, approaching the casino. We're now merged onto Mirror Park Boulevard,
Is that Paul Air?
approaching Vinyl 900.
What was that?
Oh, is that a local chopper that flies right here? Oh no.
Now on Vinewood Boulevard. Welfare unit. Yeah, we're right, mate. These bloody crazy locals. Bloody insane. Left, southbound on Alta. Incorrect lanes of travel. Code 12 is a local.
Oh, code 12.
Lots of moans happening out of the vehicle. There could be something going on in the back seat. Be mindful. Joseph, want to pick me up real quick?
Is it a pickup vehicle?
How do I register my car? Flex your L, man. Does that work? Yeah, AFib.
Oh yeah, he's back.
Do stick on comms? Yeah, stick on comms. We're going to break off parallel when we can. Yeah, 10-4. We're continuing. We're going westbound on Vinyl Boulevard. Approaching Casino again, merging into Mirror Park Boulevard. Braking. We're going off-road here into the canals.
Before we cut him off, yeah, you got it.
Southbound to the canals.
You're gonna hit that jump on the highway. Yep.
I've not seen anyone get that yet.
Is it a jumpy kind of city, or is it just a drive kind of city, if you know what I'm saying?
I think we might be going for a box.
I think they try to do some jumping stuff, but no one's...
Bruce is going to pop up above the...
No, it's quite tricky enough yet, I got you. A lot of just fast cars.
That was a bubble. That was a bubble.
Give you a bubble in a moment.
You bang her back southbound.
It's interesting seeing stuff from the police angle.
Welfare, Brucey?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you hit the taker that's hidden over at the bloody trade yard.
Bruce.
Yeah, units that are aware, I'm fairly sure Bruce has just blown himself up over at the bloody the trade yard next to the hallway. Oh, bugger.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, fucking God. Holy shit.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's kind of a...
This is the part where you're mine.
Oh, that's embarrassing. Hey,
Where are you, Levi? Running northbound in the train yard, currently just off the canals. Bravo's fucking killed himself.
Can I use my taser?
Missed on purpose too. Alright, chat. That was interesting. Bernard needs to be able to run, I think.
I have eyes on one heading here southbound of the canals. Looks like they'll be exiting at the back of MRPD.
Looks smarter or harder, eh, Bernie? .205.
A gunshot's fired. Is there officers down?
What the fuck's going on? No, it's broken his no running rule. You got shots.
Go get him.
Go get her. No crosshair is tough. It is a bit tinsel, isn't it? I'm not too bad at the no crosshair. Which way? Which way?
Northbound, mate.
Oh, they're good, aren't they?
I think so.
Oh, no, I see him. They got officers down everywhere.
I think the other one ran up onto the highway. Go look.
On the highway? Alright, up this way.
Straight forward, yeah.
It's a car taking off, I think. It's a bus there. Going. I'm going. Sorry, I had a car come pick him up. Go up in this one? That's where I would have went. Oh no. Oh, this is Bracy. Oh! No way. How's that fucking happen, dude? Eyes on one, eyes on one. Stop the vehicle! Stop the vehicle!
What the hell's going on around here?
Mate, you match the description of some illegal perpetrator, smell. You're peak.
No.
You're peak.
I heard a bunch of shooting down here.
Well, you want to get the fuck away from me there before I shoot you? Get out of here. I get a description of the perpetrator's got a peak guy driving away. Should have shot.
Let's work up in hospital.
Is that one of the guys there, officer? Oh, no, sir.
Someone was up here?
There's a car speeding away towards the hospital there.
Oh. Wait, over here?
Well, they lost their fucking suspect. Bro, there's someone in cuffs walking away. Oh, mate, there's someone in cuffs walking away just down the bridge. Is that the person you're after?
Is this one of them?
There's someone in cuffs walking away. That's one of ours. That's one of our suspects. They're on the bridge.
I was at the scene, so I don't actually know.
Oh, what? Wait, all the officers been downed. Right, these guys at peak were at the scene. They've got one in cuffs in front of me. Come here, you slippery bastard.
Domek's just on his nightly routine.
Ready to check?
Domek would love if you could get him out of cuffs.
No, I was at this bloody ATM robbery. You come back here.
Yeah, and
Torbeck out of cuffs, that would be nice. Torbeck's just on his walk. You know, like, why are you here?
Sir, I was the only person left up as you guys all get out of the vehicle. I seen you exit the vehicle.
No, I wasn't anywhere. I'm up here. I don't even know where your crime scene is.
Alright.
So I assume you must be near a crime scene.
Time 5 here, Bravo. I bloody got one of the suspects here in cuffs on Popular Street. There was a couple more vehicles cruising around. I think we've got a bunch of officers down and also the bloody the train yard. Oh no. Back up.
No. Shit!
Officer under arrest.
Oh, okay.
What the fuck, bro? Bro, that's cooked, man. That's cooked, bro. Point blank range like 3 or 4 times. Oh, bro. Did none of those shots hit? Is that what actually fucking happened? Did none of those shots hit? Wait, surely you would just shoot them because they just killed me. Yeah, I didn't see any blood splatter either. I wasn't really paying attention for it, but I'm not gonna lie. Put that in the fragtage. Fucking oath, Sven. Straight in the fragtage. Bro, after being so good yesterday, and then that shit, man. I know the first one, well, my aim was off, but every other one, that was like on the center mass, bro. I have to watch that back. I have to watch the replay. I'll give you guys a quick little raffle for 50k or something. Is that a bus coming in? Oh my god. Gonna continue induction tomorrow, no worries, Lego, mate. Thanks for hooking in anyway, man. Thanks for giving it a go.
Was it the woman that hurt you?
Yes. She hurt me a lot.
She got away from me, I think.
That's alright. I just want to be healthy again. It's the second time I've been injured so severely.
You were slapping a motherfucker too?
Birdie, no.
I was slapping a motherfucker.
He's died twice on the same shift.
Yeah, I have 3 officers down.
Who's still alive?
I don't know where Torbeck or the lady went, so...
Where's Brucey and the other one?
I think he just woke up in hospital.
Yeah.
Can I put you in the vehicle?
Taking me to hospital.
Jiminy cricket, eh? Jiminy fucking cricket. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, I'm just gonna take all 3 of them to the hospital. I've got enough room in my car.
Make sure you guys exclamation mark join to get into that raffle with 60 seconds left. I have to go edit my fragtage at the end of stream, you know.
How did you all die?
I was against 2 assailants with fucking knives.
Yeah, that one the knife wasn't that good. I got him.
One just ate 4 bloody revolver shots to the chest and still hatcheted me.
He probably had armor on.
Oh, my butthole hurts.
Not two of you with sore buttholes.
I've been shot in the ass, not sexually.
Does anyone know what happened to my recruit?
Get absolutely chopped up, bro. That hatchet's OP. I didn't realize it was so good. I'm bringing the hatchet next gunfight. 9 mil for sure. How you doing, Zeke?
Oh! Oh!
Not check the MDT.
Oh!
Not check the MDT.
Birdie White.
Recruit William, are you around?
Oh!
Okay, I'm just taking your FTO to the hospital because he drove into a fuel tank like a loser.
Whoa!
I'm not in the car. Have these guys noticed that?
A cute loser. But
Did I miss every shot?
Oh,
Clip that, put it in the fragtage then.
He's not falling off, son. I think you're driving.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no way.
Yeah, no, that's, you know.
I don't know why he's on the hood, but...
When
I
in
fucking hate that when you're too close to someone but you can't hit. Turn on the crosshair. You do like the crosshair up here, but can I lose 100%? Can win 900% worth? What?
Theorize it was not there.
No, I'm an old cunt. It's funnier, bro.
Put your seatbelt on, Birdie.
Oh, yeah.
Nah, yeah, I probably should use it unlimited. I did already say that a couple
Assuming
times,
that
but
maybe in your eyes they weren't on the roof.
Oh, the next one off my eyes.
it is funny about using that revolver.
Casino and I won 10k.
So proud of you.
I'm gonna buy a motorbike. That's all I'm gonna drive.
Nice.
Oh, I didn't change my chips though. There's still chips in my pocket.
My bad.
That could just never go bad.
I am better on a motorbike than I'm in a vehicle, so...
That checks out because of reasons.
No, I'm better on off-road motorbike, not any other sort of motorbike.
Oh. That...
Oh, thank you, Guardian Angel.
No problem.
There you go, Bob. Second time Bernie's down and out for the count. I might get a 9 mil, but you guys are on the money. You are on the money. 9 mil would probably help that situation immensely. You're right. Now, you know what I'm doing, champ. You know what I'm doing? I'm getting the fuck off of shift. I'm not dying again on shift, Jesus Christ. Think of it with a 3-day streaming streak as well. Big Jester. Any suggestions on any raids? Chuck them into chat. Might we respawn? I think we might do track number 7 again. He's streaming bloody bit of War Thunder. Have a little look-see while we wait. Well, not wait, but get out and see the go. Somebody get driven back to the station. Maybe I should rectify a snow running scenario. Or Pokemon making us lag out.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, no one in the car anyway. Empty car, get dogged. Alright.
Wait a second.
Yeah, I reckon we give track number 7 a go. Oh, he's ending. We don't do track number 7.
McKenna, does that person look familiar?
Ooh.
I wasn't at the original scene, so I don't know. I was there for a second, and then they said they wanted me tased, so...
Yeah, copy.
We found my beanie. How nice.
That's nice.
Run around.
I'm bringing them back to the station now.
Oh my god.
Sounds like a...
Raid the Oz himself.
What happened to my car?
I think is the guy. Oz himself is doing a bit of cop roleplay over on Aussie Gaming, so we'll go give him a raid, set that up while we're getting back to the station. Thank you guys all for hooking into the stream. You guys are an absolute legends.
Yeah, that
if you guys are subs here, make sure you guys use the DonHulieo hype, the DonHulieo raid, and the DonHulieo high in just like so. Over in Aussie Gaming's chat. Or the Aussie Gaming chat. The Oz himself. Same Aussie Gamer, because I keep thinking of you, Jeremy. My bad, my bad. Well. What a fucking scenario. It's taking us back to the cars, I think.
Just to let everyone know, Joey drove into a fuel tank.
Who's Joey?
The guy next to you.
That's Johnny.
No, I'm Joey.
Who is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm fucking thinking of another one. Never mind.
Yeah,
I just call him Bravo.
Yeah.
Oh, your car doesn't even look like it's there anymore.
Wait, what the fuck?
It's not.
It's gone.
Oh no.
All of them are gone.
Oh, but thank you guys all so much. We're going live again sometime next week. Jasmine's going away on Sunday, so I might be live tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. It'll be after the little man goes to bed. But thank you guys all for looking in. It's been an excellent stream. Excellent induction on Bernard. 2 deaths. Should we add those to the death counter as well? So that's death plus 1. And then 2.
At least your sirens work, unlike Road Riders. How much money do I have? I want a bike too.
I might take the time to nap now.
What was that? Sorry, Bernie?
I'm gonna have a nap now, I think. It might be done for the night.
A well-deserved nap, mate.
Thank you. Have a good night, sir.
You too. Sorry your first shift was a bit shit, mate.
It's alright.
Your bank account. I need to go put money.
It was funny. It was good talk.
Excellent, mate.
See you, mate.